What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about what you, if you're a blue belt, should be working on. So the first thing I'll say is if you are a blue belt, that means a few things. That means you probably don't have any of the basic bad defensive habits that white belts typically have. You've probably eliminated all those things. You probably have a decent knowledge of the basic moves of Jiu-Jitsu as well, and you're reasonably able to deal with a bigger, stronger, untrained opponent. Knowing those things, what should you be working on? The first thing I'll say is you should find one or two positions where you just develop a high level of offensive strength in those positions. So it might be different for it's going to be different for everybody. Okay, guys? A lot of people will get really good at the back. A lot of people will get really good at the mount. A lot of people will get really good at side control, north-south, etc. A lot of people will get really good at the guard, right, as one of their first positions. Any of those is fine in the beginning, although if you're a guard player, right, don't neglect your top game. Likewise, if you're a top person, don't neglect your bottom game. But you probably should work on developing a high level of competence in 1 to 2 positions at a time, and then you can build systems around it to get to that position. So you get your retention and your submission game strong from a few offensive positions, and then once those strengths exist, you focus on the entries into those positions and getting there from a static neutral role. The second thing I'll say is don't neglect your defense. If you're developing a strong offensive system, you should also be working on developing strong defensive systems from every position, because offensively, you can choose where to funnel people. Defensively, that's a lot more difficult to do. And you're probably going to, at some point in every role, not every role, but you're probably going to at some point in the totality of roles that you have, defend from every position in Jiu-Jitsu. So you can't pick and choose what defensive skills you get good at. You have to be good at all the defensive skills, whereas offensively you can choose to be much more surgical and funnel people into certain pathways. So you have to be good at defending and escaping from every basic position, okay? You don't necessarily, at blue belt, need to work on having high-level submission defense, but you should be working on having high-level pin escapes and high-level grip fighting to prevent you from getting into the bottom positions in the first place. The next thing that I'll say is you should get good wrestling, okay? So again, in the previous video at white belt, I talked about how you should learn basic takedowns and basic defense. At blue belt, you should start expanding on that. Now, you probably know enough to where you can fall very safely. You know how to scramble without hurting yourself and your training partner. So you can have more live exchanges in wrestling and start getting into the scramble game and learning how to chain your takedowns together. It's important to get good at wrestling, not only for sport jiu-jitsu, where you can control the pace of the roll if you're the better wrestler and you can better dictate where the match is going to take place, but also for self-defense. Even more importantly for self-defense, actually, because if you can't take the fight to the ground on your own terms and you need to, then your jiu-jitsu is going to be useless, okay? So you need to make sure you get those strong wrestling skills up. And if you're a gi guy, of course, judo skills, right? But it's all the same thing. You're trying to get good at taking the fight to the ground. Now, the third thing you should do is you should learn all the basic submissions in jiu-jitsu if you haven't already, and start learning how to build systems around them and chaining them together, okay? So if you know one submission from every position, that's fine. Some blue belts do. They only know 1, maybe 2 submissions from all the basic offensive positions, and they can hit them reasonably well in live rolling. Now it's time to up it and start learning more submissions. You don't need to keep all of them at the end, right? In fact, at purple belt, you should start trimming away some of the things that you find are lower percentage in your game and focus on the things that are higher percentage and you're hitting more often. But at blue belt, expand your mind, okay? Try to integrate as many submissions as you can into your knowledge, okay? You don't have to go for all of them in live rolling, but you should know as many submissions as possible. And just basic offensive movements like as many guard passes as possible, as many sweeps as possible. You still want to be a move collector at blue belt. And then towards the end of your blue belt and the beginning of your purple, you can start refining those systems and focusing on what you find you're having the most success with in live rolling. And guess what? Some of those moves that you throw away, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, when you learn something that you didn't know, some little nuance that you didn't know about those move sets, you may integrate them back into your game. This has happened to me several times, and it will probably happen to you if you stick with jiu-jitsu long term. So that's why it's good to have a wide knowledge of the basic submissions and, any of the other basic moves and transitions. Number 5, you should work to be able to deal with severe size discrepancies, okay? So if you're a blue belt, you can take down and deal with a bigger, stronger, untrained opponent unless they're hyper athletic, So, some people are just extremely athletic and, you may even have trouble as someone who's been training for a year plus to deal with those people and hold them down. Nevertheless, generally speaking, as a blue belt, you'll be able to deal with a bigger, stronger, untrained opponent. Now, you should start learning how to deal with bigger, stronger, trained opponents, okay? So if you're a blue belt and there's someone at the gym that outsizes you 40, 50, 60 pounds, don't duck them all the time unless you think that they are an unsafe role. That's a perfectly valid reason. But if you consider them to be a safe role, don't duck them just because they're going to smash you, okay? Them smashing you is going to be how you learn how to deal with those size and strength discrepancies, okay? There are certain battles that you cannot lose. There's certain battles that are more important than others because if that bigger, stronger person gets on top of you, usually they use their pressure and their weight to crush you, and you don't want to be there. So as a smaller guy, you'll learn those little things to make sure your guard retention is good, to make sure your ability to at least maintain a neutral position, and if you're on top, to float and maintain dominant position. Those skill sets will improve to a much greater degree when you have to deal with that big size and strength disparity. So, yes, you might be able to deal with people that are untrained. Now, start working on learning how to deal with people that are trained and bigger and stronger than you, okay? So, that's my advice if you're a blue belt. There's a lot of skills that you need to work on, and as I've said in a previous video, I believe blue belt to purple belt to be the most difficult transition in jiu-jitsu. You will plateau. You will feel like you're not getting better. You are just, you got to stay the course, okay? Some of the improvements that you're making are so small that you're not going to notice them until they accumulate over a longer period of time. So just continue training, and as long as you're doing these things, you will continue to improve. You will eventually get your purple belt, and as I've stated before, if you get to your purple belt, there's no reason you shouldn't eventually get to your black belt, because at that point, you know exactly what you need to do to improve, and you'll continue to do it. So remember, guys, black belt may seem like a lofty goal if you're a blue belt, but it will happen. Just focus one step at a time. Focus on gaining these skill sets so that you can become a competent purple belt. And then from there, just double down on what's working, and over time, your timing and your ability to integrate all your systems of jiu-jitsu into a coherent strategy is going to get you to that next level. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. If there's a blue belt out there that's struggling and they want to know what they need to do to get to that next rank, to increase that skill gap that they have with the purple belts and the brown belts and the black belts in the room, share this video with them. I'm sure it'll help them out. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are new. Click that notification bell. That way you guys get notified every time we have new videos out there. Make sure you smash that like button too. That like button really helps us. It gets us up in the algorithm, helps us spread the video out to more people. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to us on Rumble as well. We are posting content on there as well. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next time.